So in this section we're going to look at the practice methods and how these impact upon effective and efficient performance of movement skills. We'll be looking at the ways in which a teacher can organise the physical practices when teaching a variety of movement skills. Now the four practice methods you need to learn about are massed, distributed, and fixed and varied. So the four methods that you need to be aware of for this part of the course. It also includes mental rehearsal, but for the purpose of this presentation I'm not going to mention mental rehearsal. So if first we take a look at massed practice as our first practice method, you'll see that I've split this slide into three different colours. Our description in black, the good things or advantages of massed practice in red, and the disadvantages here in blue. So we'll work through first of all starting on a description of what massed practice is, and you'll see that massed practice is when you practice a skill continuously without any breaks or rest. Now these sessions tend to be long sessions and you are practicing without any breaks. So an example would be if we were in basketball and practicing our set shot. We'd be practicing the skill over and over again without any rest, and this session could last for some time. Now this type of practice is obviously very good if you're looking to groove skills and overlearn them and make them habitual. So when you're really mastering a skill and trying to overlearn it, this type of practice is good. It's also good if you've got highly motivated individuals and who have good levels of fitness. Because you're going to be training for a long time, you need the individuals to be motivated with good fitness levels in order to maintain concentration within the session. It's good for our simple and discrete skills which are short in duration, such as the simple shot, where you can practice that over and over again without any breaks. Because there's no breaks, we also can save time. You're not wasting any time in the break intervals. However, you will tend to become fatigued, so a good thing about it is that it's good for simulating conditions of fatigue. If a coach is looking to practice with their athletes under conditions of fatigue, then this method would be excellent for doing that. Now obviously practicing without any breaks for long times is going to have some disadvantages, the main one being that it can cause fatigue and also demotivation within the session, causing poor performance. If athletes, especially beginners, are doing the same session, the same drill, for a long period of time, working on the same skill without having any break, then that could cause them to become fatigued, become demotivated with the drill due to boredom, and then poor performance would obviously arise. These beginners are often affected by a lack of concentration and motivation within this type of session. So a session where they're practicing a skill over and over again without any rest for a long time could cause this fatigue, demotivation leading to poor performance, especially within beginners who would lose concentration or motivation in this type of session. So next we take a look at distributed practice, which is the opposite of massed practice. With distributed practice, as you can see from this slide, this is where you practice with rest intervals. So you do a little bit of work, then have a break, then go back to do more work on the skill. So if we take our basketball example of a free throw, you might say have 15 free throws, then go and have a break, and then go back to it afterwards. Now this has been shown by research to be the most effective way to practice for skill learning and is good for most skills to be learnt this way. It's good for where you've got beginners who've got low motivation and or fitness levels, because the breaks allow them to concentrate when they come back and also allows them to recover both physically and mentally. So if their fitness is low, they can have those breaks to recover physically and mentally. Within the breaks is also time that a coach could provide extrinsic feedback to the performers on how they're doing and how the skill is going, and that can help them improve. They can also undergo some mental rehearsal in the breaks, so running through the skill in their mind without any physical movement. So the breaks are a good period for that mental rehearsal to occur. It would be very good if you're learning dangerous or complex skills because again it allows for control over the group, so that dangerous skills such as the javelin throw can be controlled, and also complex skills can, in the breaks you can think through them and have this feedback rather than just performing them over and over again as you would with mast. Again, if you were doing dangerous activities such as javelin throw, mast practice could be dangerous because you'd have fatigue, whereas with distributed, the rest intervals they would allow for you to recover, and therefore it takes the danger element out. The next practice method we're going to look at is fixed practice. Now, fixed practice is where we practice a specific movement pattern repeatedly in the same environment. So the environment does not change at all. It's also known as a skill drill. Now, when you've got closed skills that are not affected by the environment, this type of practice is perfect for these closed skills. Reason being is that the skill is not affected by the environment, so it is the same movement pattern. Once you learn it, it's always going to be the same. If you look at a discus throw, other examples would be the shot put, javelin. Once you've learnt the exact skill, that's how it's going to be performed in every single environment. The environment does not change. So, for example, the size of the discus circle that you throw out of is the same. The shape, size, weight of the discus itself is the same. It's got to land within the V. So you're performing the skill the same each time without any change in environment. So practicing the same movement pattern with no change in environment is going to be the best way for these closed skills. It allows those skills to then be overlearnt and become habitual. Overlearning a skill is when the performer has already perfected the skill that's being learnt, but they still carry on practicing. This extra time that's spent can strengthen those motor programs even further. The final practice method that you look at in this area is that of varied practice, and this is where you practice a skill in different environments. So you've got a changing environment here. Obviously, our open skills are skills that are affected by the environment and where the environment changes, so they're going to be the best ones that need varied practice. Now, this method of practice will develop an individual schema, which is a store of experiences within the mind. Because the environment is constantly changing, because we're having different environments, then you're going to develop this store of experiences in your mind from being part of a changing environment. Within varied practice, such as in football or hockey, a 4v5 passing game, the performer has to adapt their skill to the environment. So if you're playing in football, some instances would require you to play a short pass to the side. Other environment, perhaps if the defender was close to you and an attacker or your teammate is further away, might require you to play a chip pass or a longer pass. So it requires you to adapt the skill of passing to the changing environment. You'd also, because you've got defenders and teammates as part of this changing environment, you also have to use your perceptual and decision-making skills. Remember, perception is the process of detecting stimulus has occurred, comparison, comparing it to something that's in your memory, and then recognition, which is recognizing something that's in your memory. Perhaps you've been in that situation before. If you use that process of perception to make decision within the game, so you have to develop. Actual being in this varied environment will develop these perceptual and decision-making skills. Now, when we look at varied practice with closed skills, it's important that the essential stimuli are not changed. So if we look at a discus environment, a discus throw, which is a closed skill, you wouldn't change the essential stimuli such as the size of the circle or the size or the shape of the discus. You'd only want to change the irrelevant stimuli. Also, before being introduced to varied practice, it is important that the learner has overlearnt the skill that's being performed in a fixed practice first. That will allow them to concentrate on the changing environment. So if we look at passing as being a skill that we're learning, we talked about the varied environment being a 4v5 game. Before an individual can undertake this 4v5 game, it would be important that they have overlearnt the skill of passing, possibly in a fixed drill, maybe working in pairs, passing back and forward, so that they become efficient at the skill and it becomes overlearnt. They can then enter this varied environment where perception and decision making becomes important.